Hey guys, Mr. Gardner here. Today we're going to look at day 3 of inequalities, and today we're going to talk about graphing inequalities after we solve for them. So our objective is I can solve and graph inequalities with 80% accuracy. And you can see on this picture here, it's just a graph that we see, an example, and it shows that's x greater than 2. Now you should remember from last year that whenever we have greater than and we have no equality, that we're going to use an open circle. But we're going to talk about open and closed circles in just a minute. So one thing we want to do when we're doing any of these inequalities is if the variable is on the other side of the inequality symbol, on the right side, we want to move it over to the left side. It's going to make graphing these inequalities a little bit easier. So we want to focus on being able to do that when we're solving. So this is what this looks like. So if we had a problem like this, okay, and you can see that we got our inequality symbol here, but we have our variable on this side, well, we just solve it like we normally would. So we'll subtract 1 from both sides. All right, and these will cancel out, and we'll end up getting 4 is greater than x. But this gets confusing when we're graphing. So what we can do is we can flip this around. So we can put the x over here, and just remember that the tail end of this is facing the x. So when we rewrite it, we want to make sure that we do the same thing. So we're just flipping it around, and then we put the 4 over here. All right. The reason we want to do this is that this symbol can give us kind of an indicator on which way the graph is pointing as long as the variable's on the left side. So we want to make sure that we put it over on the left side so that it always gives us that indicator. If it's on the other side, we can still graph it. It's just not as obvious when we're looking at it really quickly. Okay, so this just shows, again, those steps that I was saying. We can just flip the whole thing around so that we get the variable over on the left side. Now, what we were talking about earlier is when we're graphing inequalities on a number line, we use either an open circle or a closed circle. An open circle means that we're using greater than or less than, okay? And that is showing that the solution that the circle is on is not actually a solution to the problem. The number that it's on is not a solution. That's why it's open. It's saying everything up to this point is good, but this point is not good. Whereas a closed circle, it's for greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. So it does have that equality, which means that this dot's filled in, meaning that the number it's placed on is an actual solution to the problem we're looking at. Let's look at a couple examples. So let's say we have n is less than 5. So if we have n is less than 5, we know that we're using an open circle because we don't have any equality. So we'd come over to 5. We're going to put an open circle there. And as you remember, I was saying that this can give us an indicator. This here is going to tell us that we're going to go to the left. So we'll just put this arrow to the left. That way, and that's going to be our graph. And so again, this tells us why we should always put our variable on the left side. And then the open circle tells us that we have no equality. Let's look at another one. Let's see, we have n is greater than negative 3. So again, we have no equality, so we're going to put our circle open on negative 3, and look where that arrow is pointing on there. That tells us which way our arrow should be pointing on our graph. Okay, so again, make sure the variable's on the left-hand side, all right, and make sure you're using the correct circle when you're graphing these. Okay, n is greater than or equal to negative 1. Again, you can see here, now I have that equality. Now my circle's filled in. I don't have an open circle anymore. All right, because I'm saying that negative 1 does work. If I put negative 1 here, negative 1 is equal to negative 1. So that is a solution. N is less than or equal to 0. Again, it's saying that 0 is a solution, so we're going to fill in that circle. And again, the arrow here is pointing left, so is the arrow on our graph. So we can use that kind of as an indicator.